Hello and welcome back to the Shutter Sports Refresh, the weekly show that breaks down all of the most important news in sports. I'm your host, Finn Noel, and let's get right into this week's episode. To start things off, it was the closing of the Winter Olympics ceremony yesterday. This Olympics was once again won by the country of Norway, who led in the weighted standings and in the medal count. They racked up 41 medals, with 18 of those, so almost half, being gold medals. And for Norway, the top sport was definitely cross-country skiing, as they racked up 7 gold medals in that sport. Now, in second place this Olympics was the USA, who finished with 33 medals and 12 golds. And they were the depiction of an all-around nation in this Olympics, as they got medals in just about every sport. And then rounding out the top 3 was the Netherlands, who got all 20 of their medals from speed skating. And an honorary shout out to Italy, who was the host country as these Olympics were held in Milan. They finished with an impressive 10 gold medals and 30 total, definitely showing out for their fans. Now, the Olympics isn't fully over yet, as the Paralympic Games start on March 6th, so make sure you stay tuned to the refresh in the coming weeks for that. Let's move into hockey now, as the NHL is finally back in action after taking a massive break for the Olympic Games. And although the NHL is back on, the biggest hockey game in the world went down over the weekend between the bitter rivals of Canada and USA. Now, these two countries faced off in the Four Nations Cup finals last year, where Canada took a tight squeezed win. Now, I'm sure both countries were determined to make it to the finals of the Olympics to face each other again, and they both had some tough roads to get there. Canada had to fight through 2 tough opponents in Czechia and Finland, and they won both of those games on just last-minute goals. And the USA had a similar scare against Sweden, but they were able to take the win in overtime. And so the teams ended up matching up with each other, both teams relatively healthy except for Canada, who was missing their captain, Sidney Crosby. And the game did not disappoint to start, as both teams were super physical, getting some big hits in the opening minutes. But Team USA player Matt Boldy managed to sneak it through the net for the only goal of the first period, so the first period would end 1-0 for USA. But things didn't end up working out for them, as at the end of the second period, Cole Makar of Canada ended up notching it through the net to tie things up at 1-1. And neither team would score in the third period, meaning things were going to overtime. And in overtime, it was all America, as Jack Hughes eventually found the back of the net, winning the Olympic gold medal for USA. And in the women's side, it was a similar scene, as we saw Canada and America face off in the women's gold medal game as well. And in a shockingly similar result, the USA actually took home that game in overtime 2-1 as well. A dominant showing in hockey for the Americans. Congratulations to them. Let's move into basketball now, as the NBA just returned from its All-Star break, so here's a look at the standings. In the Eastern Conference, it is the Boston Celtics who have continued to impress late in the season. The Celtics are now just 5 games back of the Detroit Pistons for the number 1 seed in the East, so a bit of a tight matchup there as we reach the end of the season. Then following the Pistons and the Celtics in the Eastern Conference are the New York Knicks and Cleveland Cavaliers, who have had more consistent play as of late. Then rounding out the playoff picture are the Toronto Raptors, Philadelphia 76ers, and Miami Heat. Moving over to the Western Conference now, it is the San Antonio Spurs who have been the super hot team as of late. They've won their last 8 games and are now only 3 games back of the Oklahoma City Thunder, who look to be the greatest team of all time at the beginning of the year. And then after the Spurs and Thunder is a group of teams who have all had some struggles at some point, with some things or some injuries to figure out before the playoffs start. Those teams are the Denver Nuggets, the Houston Rockets, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then in the 7th seed is the Phoenix Suns, followed by the Golden State Warriors. And finally, let's end this week's episode with a recap of the first leg of the Champions League first round. Remember that each team plays 2 games against each other, and the total score decides the winner. First up, it was Dortmund and Real Madrid, who took care of business, taking down Benfica and Atalanta. Then PSG had a bit of a scare, facing off against their fellow French team, Monaco. Monaco started the game with a big goal early, but earned a red card, and that allowed PSG to get back in the game and win 3-2. Then it was Juventus, who had a similar fate against Galatasaray. Galatasaray now leads 5-2, so Juventus will have to have a massive second game to get back. Then it was Newcastle who took down Karabag 6-1. It was Leverkusen who beat the Greek team Olympiacos 2-0. Then it was a close game between Atletico Madrid and Club Brugge, thanks to an 89th minute tying shot from Christos Solis. A very exciting matchup there. And then finally, it was Inter Milan versus Bodo Glimt. Bodo Glimt, the Norwegian team, shocked the world with a 3-1 win over a fully healthy Inter Milan team. What a win for them, and hopefully they can keep that hot streak up headed into the second leg. Those matches go down over the next few days, so come back to the refresh next week and we will keep you updated. And that will do it for this week's episode of the Shutter Sports Refresh. I'm your host, Finn Noel, and I hope you enjoyed watching. You can check me and our writer, Lucky Roberts, out on Instagram right below my head. And don't forget to check out the Shutter Sports Refresh on Instagram, where we give you breaking news, not just weekly recaps. Thanks for watching.